Hey guys, when SwitchBot initially reached out to me to review the product, I was slightly hesitant about it because why not to get like connected switch, replace it and be done with it. But then I realized I'm in a privileged position where I actually can do electrical work on my switches and replace them. But if you are renting, you might be in a different position and not allowed to play with the switches at all, and this is where SwitchBot comes into. But as soon as I received the army of robots from SwitchBot, I had about 10,000 different ideas where I could use them, and none of them were for the wall switches. So what is SwitchBot and why you should care? Well, technically speaking, this is a robot. It has a servo controlled by a Bluetooth-enabled microcontroller, which it's packaged in a nice form factor, and it's meant to represent your finger, or maybe your kids, depending on what more often you use to toggle your switches. Yeah, I know exactly that you tell your kids to do it for you, you lazy bum. Oh, I'm only upset because that's been done to me when I was a kid. SwitchBots aren't just the robots. They're available in two different colors, but they're Bluetooth connected, so in order to use them in the internet, you need a hub, and this is the SwitchBot hub. Now, it doesn't look like much, and I know what you're thinking, yet another hub for home automation. Probably you have 50 of them out there. But it's actually pretty cool because it comes with an infrared blaster. It's omnidirectional, which means put it anywhere in a room and you should be able to control any infrared enabled devices. For example, you can replicate a remote like this. I'll be talking about it in details in a moment. So apart from hub, you also have a sensor, standard temperature and humidity sensor that you can use. It has also nice LCD display, and I wish there were more sensors like this that give you two options. First, to display the information about humidity and temperature in your room, but also to transmit that data to a hub. Now, another cool thing about the sensor is that it actually stores the values for up to 30 days, so that's pretty cool. Lastly, there's also a curtain bot, which wasn't included in my kit, so if you want to get more details, I'll just post some information in the description of this video. So let's talk about SwitchBot in action. This is a UK's wall switch, for lights obviously, and it's not difficult to use, right? You just toggle it up or down to get your light setting. But UK switches are really hard to switch. They're loud, clicky, and require a ton of force. Sometimes I would consider a hammer just to switch it on and off. So I wasn't really having much hope for the SwitchBot to be able to toggle it. And yet, sure enough, I actually had a problem switching it because the SwitchBot wasn't strong enough to perform both actions. Now, in order to work with UK switches, there are two things that you have to do. First of all, you have to change the setting because the SwitchBot comes into two settings, and set it into a switch mode. There's also a push mode for different switches. So as soon as you change it into a switch mode, there is a small attachment. It's a loop with a 3M sticker to add it to the trigger itself. So the switch would have the ability to actually push on the switch and pull on the switch to return it back to an off position. Now, for the most part, I was able to push down on the switch successfully, but the bot wasn't strong enough to pull it back, regardless of the positioning of the 3M sticker. Granted, this was the cheapest and the most difficult switch to toggle I could find in my household. I've picked this in particular just to demonstrate what you could do to actually make the SwitchBot work for you. Unfortunately, if you also suffer from a similar switches and not like nice posh switches that don't require a hammer, then you'll have to make small modification. While the fix is quite simple, it will require you to disassemble a switch like this, so make sure you turn off the electricity, the main power electricity, so you wouldn't end up in trouble. Inside you will find a small connector that puts the tension on a switch. Use pliers or something similar to straighten up this spring, and it will make the actuation of the switch much easier. Repeat this process for every single spring that you might find inside. Obviously, bear in mind that your design might vary, so you might need to figure out on yourself what applies extra tension to the toggle. After this fix, the SwitchBot was fully operational and I was enjoying toggling the lights on and off with commands. Now, speaking of commands, it's a really cool feature using the app. Apart from the app switching, it's obviously links to your typical assistants coming from Amazon or Google. Speaking of cloud control, that has to be enabled for every single device, which is actually cool because you can define which device should post to cloud and which device should be just operating via Bluetooth. As you can see, switchboards are pretty adorable, and I promised I'm gonna show you a couple of silly uses of them. So let's gonna start with a kitchen board, something I'm particularly proud because now I can make myself a hot brew without leaving the office. Alexa, kettle on. You have to admit, this looks silly and great and has every mark of viral video, so if you don't share this video, honestly, those little guys gonna be really upset with you. Before I figure out how to actually ease the tension on my Switch, I had a silly idea of two switches battling over the light. Alexa, come to the dark side.
Yes, Master Vader.
Alexa, join the light.
The light is with me.
And the last showcase involves the hub itself. I'm a lazy person, so I have a full profile for automating my home cinema. In my bedroom, I have a Xiaomi DLP projector. It's pretty cool. You can read more about it or watch the video about it here. But what it does, whenever I turn on the projector using a remote controller, my lights turn off. It's a very convenient way because I don't have to get up off the bed. I'm really lazy, like I said. Now, this is part of my integrated smart switch, so there's another video in here explaining how it happens in details, but for the purpose of this video, what you have to know that audio from the projector is sent to Rothenmeier's amp. I've reviewed that previously, so if you're interested, you can take a look in there. It's a really cool amp, however, I still have to turn it on using either remote or reach out behind my back, find the button and press it, which is annoying because I'm lazy. So I figure out it's time to assign this remote to a hub and make an automation out of it. It turns out all I had to do is learn two buttons, a power and a line in, just in case I left it in a different mode. Then I've created a scene with the manual trigger and obviously my infrared actions, so Amazon Echo or Google Home devices would be able to see this. Now that I've got the scene, I can use Alexa Remote version 2 to trigger it from Node-RED, and integrating it with my previous project is as simple as dropping a single flow into that project. And voila! Now when I press the power button on my projector, the light turns off and the sound comes up on as soon as my projector is online. Brilliant! I guess it's time for conclusion. Now, if you're living in a rented apartment and you can't do any electrical work, providing your switches aren't too difficult in operation is actually quite good solution. I only wish they had a little bit more torque so you wouldn't have to open up the switch and make any adjustments. But what I absolutely love about them is how creative you can get with these simple switches, because you can add them to absolutely anything, especially if you have a 3D printer. Now, Kettle is just the beginning, and I'll be looking into a different adapters that I can use with those switches and toggle the buttons that you would not expect. Thanks so much to SwitchBot for sending me this. If you're interested, in the video description you're gonna find links for these. Now, do let me know your crazy ideas. Where would you deploy this, or how would you like me to try to use it? I have a 3D printer, so I'll be able to come up with crazy contraptions and see what fine ideas we can actually automate thanks to the SwitchBot. Now, as for now, you probably know that I do not have a posting schedule, so the best way to keep in touch is to follow me on one social media of your choice, or more if that's your thing. Now, you know how YouTube works, so I'm not going to explain it, but what I'm going to say is thanks so much for watching and see you in the next video. Take care, bye!